I like Alex as a character for the most part, but there was one part where I really didn't appreciate what he did. All right, y'all, I finally got done with Fated, which is the first book in the Alex Verus series. This is a series that I said that I was going to read one book a week, and that was a total lie. But I'm getting through these books as quickly as I can while still being able to enjoy them and take care of my other responsibilities because, I have to go to work and stuff. I have a couple things written down that I wanted to talk about, and let's just get on with it. First of all, if you haven't read this book yet, you absolutely should. The series is very interesting so far, and I feel like we're just getting started. You might want to click away, though, if you haven't read the book, because this is going to be an in-depth discussion about my thoughts and feelings from the things that I read in it, and there will be spoilers, so spoiler warning, go away and come back later when you've read the book. So Jacka's version of magical London is really, really interesting. We have a very old world vibe where there's different nooks and crannies where magical things can hide, and it's just sort of the mystique of the area. I don't know how to describe it other than you go to a place, you know that it has power and that it has a lot more under the surface, but if you're a mere mortal like myself, you might not necessarily be able to pick up on that right away. Alex Verus, who's our main character, has his own shop that sells magic stuff, and he gets really, really annoyed, much like our buddy Harry Dresden does when somebody tries to get him to do normal magician stuff like card tricks or pulling rabbits out of the hat, that kind of things. He actually paired up with a shop a little bit far away from him to send customers who are looking for those kinds of things, which I thought was hilarious. Alex Verus also tells us pretty early on that there's this wizard in Chicago that he's heard about that likes to advertise in the Yellow Pages. So in some universe, maybe not our mainstream Dresden verse, but maybe a Mirror verse or something else, Alex Verus and Harry Dresden are in the same world, and there needs to be a collaboration because that would just make me happy on the inside. And if you don't know who I'm talking about when I say Harry Dresden, there's a series called the Dresden Files that I'm kind of an expert in, and I have plenty of videos if you want to check those out. But for now, I'm just going to start from the basis of someone who read Dresden Files first and is now going into Alex Verus as sort of a thing to help hold her over until we get to the next book. And it's probably worth mentioning now that the Alex Verus series was recently completed, so I'm a little bit behind the times, and I'll be able to know everything that happens, which will be kind of a cool experience. So like Harry, Alex has a very weird relationship with his local magical governing body. They are both called the Council, and they're both made up of older mages who are very, very powerful and are kind of a pain to work with. But the Council in the Alex Verus universe is a lot less cut and dry. In Dresden Files, you had the laws of magic, whereas in Alex Verus's world, it's really just don't anger the wrong person and make sure that you play your cards right politically, and you're fine. The Council doesn't really like Alex, and I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's because he ended up leaving his mentor, even though I don't think that he ended up dueling his mentor like Harry did. I think that he just was like, oh, this is a terrible situation. I'm going to get out of it. Bye. And some people didn't like that. So Alex has basically been trying to have a normal life while avoiding any sort of interaction with the magical community that he left. There are two major factions in this book, the Dark Mages and the Light Mages. The Light Mages are seen as the good guys, and the Dark Mages are very much in it for themselves. Basically, whoever has the most power and can bully other people into doing what they want has the most power and the most influence over everybody else. Even though the Light Mages are still kind of like that, the Dark Mages are just willing to go to any lengths to get power and keep it. And there was also a conflict between the Light Mages and the Dark Mages that doesn't completely get explained in this book, but I think will be important for later. Basically, the Dark Mages want to have more power over the overall council, and the council is sort of resisting, sort of not. And it's just a very interesting place to be in politically, where you don't really know whose side everybody is on. Alex's mentor, whose name is Richard, was a dark mage, and he kept Alex and some other children recruited in his mansion. He basically asked them what they wanted, and Alex at one point was like, I want to be so powerful that nobody can mess with me. And Richard really liked that answer. But the Dark Mages don't treat their apprentices very, very well, and Alex definitely acknowledges that he bit off much more than he could chew. Not everybody in Alex's cohort of apprentices made it through. And that gives Alex a lot of conflicting feelings, because some of them he really thought well of, others of them he didn't think well of. Some of them it might have been Alex's fault. We get little hints here and there about that. And though Alex as an adult might see himself as not being aligned with one side or the other mages definitely have an idea about what side he's on and make assumptions about that. In this first adventure, Alex makes friends with a girl named Luna, and she brings him objects to sell in his shop that may or may not be magical. One day Luna brings him this red cube, and Alex doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know what it is. It was at an estate sale where she had been to there before, and then it magically showed up afterwards, and nobody knew where it had come from. But then people who are really, really creepy start popping up wanting to either take Luna for themselves or get Alex to help them on a project because Alex can see into the future and basically figure out like what's going to happen. And basically Alex and Luna get involved in a quest that neither of them wanted to get involved with in the first place. Over the course of the story, we basically figure out that there's a statue in the British Museum, and the cube that Luna has is the key to get into the statue. And the statue is also this keeping place for this really, really incredible weapon called the Fate Weaver. And anybody who's anybody of importance wants this Fate Weaver thing. Except for Alex and Luna, of course. The story has stakes, but I found the characters to be a lot more interesting. For example, Luna has this curse on her that basically makes her really, really lucky and avoid chance bad things happening to her. But it basically redirects all of that towards other people with disastrous consequences. And so she's very, very isolated and alone. And she even tells Alex that she had sought him out because if she didn't have anybody magical in her life who could sort of understand what was going on and interact with her safely, then she really had no reason to have hope in her life. And she's actually like a very sweet character, but also very standoffish. She's very awkward and doesn't really know what's going on or how to basically reconcile her desire to be loved with her desire to not get other people hurt. And she ends up becoming Alex's apprentice, and Alex seems to enjoy her company as a friend. I have a bad feeling that they're going to try to do the whole Alex and Luna become a couple later on, because apparently having the wizard or the mage and their apprentice become a couple is a thing. I see it in series like Iron Druid or Dresden Files, even though Dresden doesn't necessarily want to get with his apprentice, but his apprentice definitely has a crush on him. But it seems overdone, and quite frankly, it also seems kind of like a weird relationship dynamic that I'm not entirely comfortable with. We also have another character, Delio, who was a person who was one of the apprentices with Alex under Richard and who has survived somehow. She's really, really interesting to me because I think that she has two different personalities in her head, or that she's somehow sharing her mind with some other magical entity. And she swaps back and forth, including not going by the name Rachel or saying that that's not her name. And she's very hot and cold with Alex. Sometimes she's able to come to a truce, and other times she definitely wants to fight him. And I think that she's going to be more important later on as we go through the series. Another person that I think is going to be important is Cinder, who is this fire mage who really doesn't like, and by really doesn't like, I mean practically despises Alex. They seem to be teammates except for one pivotal moment near the end of the book. There's this one moment where Delio/Rachel pulls Cinder out of the place where the Fate Weaver is being kept because he's injured, and she does so tenderly. So she either respects him or there's some sort of relationship going on there. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's something that'll get explored in further books. I'm saying that a lot. I really feel like this book did a good job of setting the stage for the series as a whole, and I think that the scope was kept so tight for this book that we have a lot more that we can expand the universe into that we just haven't seen yet. There's this one character that I thought was really fun named Starbreeze. She's an air spirit who's kind of an airhead, and she doesn't really communicate in a way that we would perceive to be as being very intelligent, even though she's a very old spirit, and she's very powerful. So we completely underestimate her, and she just seems kind of silly, and then she goes and does amazing things. And then she also has this intuition, like near the end of the story, after Alex has taken the Fate Weaver and basically made a bargain to become one with it without really realizing what was going on. Starbreeze is like, wrong. You are not going to leave this area. There is something amiss. What's going on? And that cues Alex into the mess that he is in. We get to the end of the story and we think that he's finally out of the maze. He's out of that prison and he has this artifact. And then we find out that the artifact was a trap all along. Like, that was brilliant. And Alex is able to use the power of him and his friends in order to overcome it and basically turn the Fate Weaver into just a piece of the wand. And then he puts it back because I think what they were trying to do with this whole thing is they weren't trying to keep people from getting the wand necessarily. They were trying to keep the wand from ever getting out. Which is also why there wasn't a lot of literature or anything available, because that information is dangerous and somebody probably scrubbed it. I like Alex as a character for the most part, but there was one part where I really didn't appreciate what he did. After Arachne gives him and Luna ribbons so that he can be around her and the ribbon will eat up the curse instead of him eating up the curse, he keeps getting in Luna's personal space and trying to reassure her that she's not going to hurt him and that nothing bad is going to happen. And she freaks out and she really doesn't appreciate that. It makes her feel very, very uncomfortable. And then he just kind of takes charge and is like, okay, this is how it's going to go. Like, you need to get over yourself. I don't know if I could have done any better in his situation because they needed to get to the ball and they needed to avoid getting captured by anybody along the way. And he also knows a lot more about the magical world than Luna. Like, there's a reason why he's sort of her guide into it. But at the same time, I felt really, really bad for Luna and that she was basically fighting the entire time and she was powerless and just had to trust him. And when you're dealing with scary magic stuff like that, that's incredibly uncomfortable and kind of hard to read. Alex seems like a good guy, but he definitely has this bad streak in him where he's more than happy to take somebody out or to do something that's a means to an end, even if it might be something terrible. And I think we're going to learn more about that as the series goes on, and it's going to make him an interesting character. But at the same time, I wonder if Alex is going to end up becoming a villain or end up going more to the dark mage side, or if he's going to be able to maintain his neutrality and basically just be able to be his own man. Or maybe those are both the same thing. Who knows? We'll figure that out later. All right, so that is my discussion for Fated. I am reading Cursed right now, which is the second book, and I will report back to y'all after I have some stuff to say about it. If you like what I do, hit the subscribe button, join the caffeination. We'd love to have you. I'm doing more Alex Verus content. I do a lot of Dresden Files content, and I'm getting more into other urban fantasy series. So if you'd like to be along for the ride for that, you need to subscribe. Bye.